Hi, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Open Science webinar series. This webinar series is organized by Hamzah Sundut Library, University Science Malaysia. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Muhammad Ikhwan Ismail, Senior Librarian at University Science Malaysia. I will be responsible for hosting this session today and will be assisted by my colleagues on the backstage from the Research Support Division, Hamzah Sundut Library. I'm glad to welcome all of you from Malaysia, our colleagues from the Malaysian library community, and also I believe that some viewers today also from other countries, from Singapore, Indonesia, Brunei, Netherlands, UK. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. I would like to warmly welcome our special guest today, Joanne Yomas. Good morning, Joanne. How are you?
Good morning from Leiden, from the Netherlands. I'm very well, thank you, Ikwan. Good to
Yeah,
be here today.
Thank you very much for having here today. Why did I say good morning? Because the Netherlands time now is 9 a.m. And Malaysia time is 3 p.m. Is about 6 hours behind Malaysia time. We are so glad you could be here today to share your insights on this webinar entitled Librarian Roles in Supporting Open Science and Research Data Management, Leiden University's Experience. The objective of this webinar is to introduce the concept of open science and research data management to all viewers, especially to the Malaysian librarians, and to share the Leiden University Library's experience in developing and delivering open science and RDM services. Joanne is my friend that we met for the first time at IFLA WLIC 2018 in Kuala Lumpur. I still remember that I met her on the shuttle bus. We went to a dinner at that time, right, Joanne?
That's
While
right, yes.
yeah, while chatting with her on the shuttle bus, we introduced ourselves, and we found that we are in the same area, which is in research data management. Since that time, we continue in sharing information and knowledge about RDM until now. So today we are so lucky. We are at USM are inviting her to be a special guest to our webinar today. Before we start, I would like to introduce our special guest, Joanne Yeomans. She is a digital scholarship librarian, research data management expert at Leiden University Library in the Netherlands. She started her career as a university subject librarian in the UK before moving to Switzerland to work on open access and other library projects at the Scientific Information Service of CERN. She then spent almost 10 years working at the two international library organizations based in the Netherlands. They were the first one is the International Federation of Library Associations and Institutions, IFLA, and the European Bureau for Library Information and Documentation Associations, EBLIDA. Since 2018, she has been working in the Center for Digital Scholarship at Leiden University, a team of 10 people focusing particularly on RDM community development. During this time, she has co-authored the open access book that is entitled Engaging Researchers with Data Management, the Cookbook. Okay, this is derived from a project coordinated through the Research Data Alliance, RDA, and she also co-created the Data Horror Digital Escape Room with colleagues from two other Dutch universities. All viewers can read these two open access books that written by authored by our friend here, Joanne Yeomans, through the links given in the chat box. Okay, you may check in the chat box. We just give the link, and then you just click on that link. Then you can straightly read that book. Okay, all right. They have two books there. Okay, so we also could know more about our special guest today by looking at her profile on the LinkedIn and Leiden University website as shown in the poster of the webinar. All right. Okay. So now let me explain what is going on this afternoon. Okay. In the morning at the Netherlands. Okay. There are some topics that will be discussed. Okay. I will divide it into three sections. In each section, our guest will do a presentation. And at the end, of each section will be a Q&A session. Okay, Q&A. So you may drop your any questions, okay, into the chat box on our Facebook page, okay, Pustakaan Hamzah Sendut, and also our YouTube channel, USM Library TV. In other words, that please also I hope that all viewers can keep sharing our Facebook Live now, okay, to your Facebook timeline, okay. All right, so I will try my best to bring up all your questions to Joanne, and then she will answer your question later. All right, okay. So without further ado, I would like to go to the first topic. Okay, so this first topic is very important to us, especially we as a librarian, and this is what we as a librarian should understand first before we start to develop the services. Okay, in addition, emerging roles and possible futures for librarians to handle new services related to open science and research data management should be highlighted nowadays. So the first topic is very important. It is about the introduction to open science, introduction to the research data management, or what we call as a RDM, and also what is the library roles, what is the librarian roles, okay, regarding to the open science and RDM. Okay, so without further ado, I would like to invite our special guest here today, Joanne Yeomans, to share her insight, her ideas, her experience on this first topic. Please welcome Joanne, please.
Yeah, okay, thanks very much, Ikwan. That was a lovely introduction, and I'm very grateful for all of you coming to join us in this webinar. I hope I can tell you some interesting things and some things perhaps you hadn't thought about, but I know many of you are going to be working in open science and RDM support. So I think probably you have experiences that I would like to hear about. So please feel free to post comments or questions or suggestions to me in the chat today. I'm very happy to interact and have discussion with you all. So I've made slides today to go through what I want to say. As Ikwan told you, we met in Kuala Lumpur a few years ago now, and I was just about to start my job at LEIDEN at the time. So I've only been working in this area for just 2.5 years, really, as a digital scholarship librarian in the data management team at the Centre for Digital Scholarship at Leiden University Libraries, and that's where I'm speaking to you from today. So as we say in the Netherlands, goedemiddag vanuit Leiden, good afternoon from Leiden, and thank you very much for the invitation to the team at University Science Malaysia, especially Rogaya Ali for the invitation, the Chief Librarian at Hamzah Sendut Library, and to Mr. Kamal and his team, Ramla, Dila and Dikwan, for making this happen today. And I should also probably mention Afik and Asfar, who are behind the scenes making sure everything works. So thank you very much to all of you for making this happen. And I'm very, very glad to have the opportunity to speak to you. I think if we hadn't had the pandemic, probably this wouldn't have happened. So some good things come out of this situation. So I would like to tell you first a little bit about the university I work at, to give you some context. So we're in the Netherlands, in Europe, and we have 2 sites, one at Leiden and one in The Hague. The Netherlands is a very small country, so everything's quite close together. And we're quite near the coast and the beaches, and just about 30 minutes from Amsterdam and Schiphol Airport. So all the cities are close together, and we're really in amongst all the population here in the Netherlands. And the university, as I said, is mainly based in Leiden. That's the name of the university. And Leiden itself is a very historic city. It's very similar to the images you might have of Amsterdam, with canals and little crooked houses. And it's called the City of Discoveries because many of the scientists and artists from the Netherlands have lived and worked in Leiden over the centuries. And it's quite small, with a population of 123,000, and of that 24,000 are students. So you can see the university is quite a dominating feature of the city. Many of the people who live here work at the university as well. So the university is really very central with the city itself. And 6 faculties are based in Leiden and 1 in The Hague. And in Leiden, we have the Bioscience Park, which is a modern area around the university hospital. And that's where the science faculty is, and some of the more scientific groups that have labs and more modern facilities. And then we have the rest of the university is based in the city centre campus, amongst the old buildings, and that's where we are in the library. And I thought I would show you this picture. This engraving on the left is the university building just a few decades after it was founded. And you can see on the right, the building itself hasn't changed very much in 400 years. And this is still the central building of the university. And we are in the library just behind this building. And the university is the first university to be established in the Netherlands, founded by William of Orange in 1575, as a reward to Leiden for its resistance against the Spanish. So as a result, we have this, this blue logo, this circular logo, which features Minerva, who was the Roman goddess of wisdom and defensive war. So a very appropriate symbol for the university to choose. And our motto is Praesidium Libertatis, freedom of spirit, thought and expression. And I mention that because this is still a very strong feature of the university, this idea of freedom of spirit, freedom of thought. And it means that the university differs to some others in that each faculty is very independent. So many universities across the world, I think, are very centralized, and the decision-making takes place for all the university. But at Leiden, there's a lot of differences. So faculties are quite independent. They can make decisions for themselves. They can govern their own funding. And this has an implication for how we do the data management support as well. One of the famous things about Leiden is the Hortus Botanicus, the botanical gardens. And these are the gardens just behind that old building I showed. And it's the place where the first tulips were grown in the Netherlands when they were brought from the Middle East. And so it's a beautiful garden that's open to the public now. But I thought I would show you this picture because if you look right in the top right-hand corner up here, this is the roof of the library building. So that's where we are right now. And the university has 7 faculties. Governance and Global Affairs is based in The Hague, around the Peace Palace and the International Court of Human Rights, the International Criminal Court. So there's a lot of research connected with those institutions going on in The Hague. But the other 6 faculties are in Leiden, and we have archaeology, which is the only archaeology faculty in the Netherlands, humanities, law, medicine, and the Leiden University Medical Centre, which is connected to the hospital. We have science faculty and social and behavioural sciences. And so we're a very wide-ranging university, and we cover almost all subjects you can think of. And so that also has an implication for our data management support. So a bit about the library itself. I work in the Centre for Digital Scholarship, which is an office here. We have this nice neon sign above the door. And it's at the back of the library building, which you can see at the bottom. It's a more modern building than some of the buildings in the city centre. And I'm sitting in that office now. And accessible to academics who want to come in and talk to us. So that's where we are. And this is the team. So the Centre for Digital Scholarship has 10 members of staff at the moment, and we're split into 3 sub-teams. The first that I want to mention is the data management team that I'm in, and we have 2 full-time people and 2 part-time people in that team. And then we have a use of digital data, which is, we have 2 people in that team, and they're more software engineers, so a bit more practical than the data management team. And then we have the open access and copyright advice team. And altogether, there are 10 of us, but 2 people work partly in the data management team and partly in the open access team. And we had a photo taken together. I've had to paste in a couple of people because we haven't had a chance to get together since the pandemic. And 2 of the people were fairly new. So we're hoping that we can get together soon. But as I say, we all work together in one big office normally. And at the moment, we're all working from home most of the time until the pandemic numbers go down and we can get back into the office full time. So that gives you some context as to where I'm working. And then I wanted to talk to you a bit about how we see our role in the library with regards to open science and research data management. So I don't want to talk very much about the skills of librarians and why librarians can do this work, because I think that I'm not an expert in that. And a lot of this has been covered very well by Libra, which perhaps some of you know about, the organisation in Europe of European research libraries. And they have some lovely documents and this beautiful wheel that talks about and investigates the role of libraries in supporting open science and the kind of skills that you need and the kind of areas you can work in. Because that's covered by much more knowledgeable people than me, I don't want to go into that in general, but I want to talk about how we at LEIDEN see our role in open science support. So our vision for the Centre for Digital Scholarship, CDS, is that we work together with faculties, expertise centres, the administrative office, and national and international colleagues to facilitate and support researchers in data management, open access, and the use of digital data in the context of open science. So I've highlighted these words, work together and facilitate and support, because we very much see this as a collaboration with academics rather than a service that the library delivers. And I think that's a very important difference to many of the other services that the library can deliver to staff and students. And we've used this diagram from Simon Wardley. I don't know him, but he's an expert, an academic who thinks about organisations and evolution of services. And he suggested that there are 3 areas in the evolution of a service or a product. And in that, we have 3 groups of people: the pioneers, the settlers, and the town planners. And the town planners are the ones who provide the service. They establish things, that they scale things up. They use operational efficiency, they use metrics and analytics to see what people want, and they deliver a good service to everybody. And I would like to argue that's where the library would normally sit, in this town planners area. But what we think in CDS is that we sit more in this pioneers and settlers area of work. So the pioneers are the people who experiment. They may fail, they may not always be successful, but they don't care. They don't really listen to customers. They just play with things and experiment, try new things out, and they make discoveries as a result. So they are the pioneers. And then the settlers take those ideas and maybe start talking to customers about what they want, what's useful, how can we develop this? And so they may run pilots, have tailored services to just small groups that they trial. And so they have more of an interaction with the audience about the service. And so we think that the use of digital data team works mostly in the pioneer area, and the open access and data management teams work in this settler area. And as these services become established, they may become standard services across the university, and then they're in the kind of town planner area. But this makes for a very different culture, we think, between the CDS and the library. And for that reason, we gave our small team, or I didn't, but my manager, worked with the library to give a different identity to the CDS. And that's why we have a different name. and we produce our own materials. And so although we always associate ourselves with the library, we try to have this slightly different identity to give people the idea that we have a different focus and that we are more collaborative than providing a service, and that we want to try things out. We're not able to deliver the same thing to everyone maybe, but we're trying things out. We're trying to discover a good way to serve people. And so coming back to another diagram from Simon Wardley, in this top right-hand corner, this is where we think the library sits, developing mostly services that are established and well-practiced and well-rehearsed and very well-established. But we, in the CDS, in supporting open science, we're more in this area at the bottom left-hand corner. We're looking at new products, new services, custom building them for particular faculties, developing them and experimenting with them. And so I say we have a very different outlook, but we work together with the library in delivering that. And why is that important in supporting open science? Well, open science as an idea has been around for quite a long time, I think, but we all know that it's actually very difficult to know what to do to support open science. The idea is quite old, but the way to do it is quite new. And so we don't have all the solutions for open access. We don't have all the solutions for making transparent research, open data, open scientific workflows. We just don't know how this works well and how to support all this well yet. We're still experimenting, we're still trying to find solutions. And so that's why we feel we're in this more pioneer and settler area of work than the established service yet at the moment. And when we talk about all these open things, sometimes people wonder where research data management fits, because talking about open data can sometimes scare off academics a little bit, and they don't want to make their data open. But I would argue research data management fits in several areas under this umbrella of open science. It's not just about open data, but it's about having the whole scientific workflow open and showing people how you have arrived at your results. Your data may not be open, but at least you can tell people how you collected the data, where it comes from, and to maybe other researchers you can give access to the data, but it doesn't necessarily mean everything is open. So it's about this scientific workflow, and it's about having research integrity and showing that the results of your research are based on data that's been collected somewhere and not just a result that's popped up out of nowhere. So we don't equate RDM to open data exactly, and we're always very clear when we speak to research staff that this is not the case. We like to use this image from the European Union funding stream Horizon 2020, which had this very nice phrase that we use: as open as possible, as closed as necessary. And so when they fund researchers in Europe, they ask them to make their results and their data as open as possible, but as closed as necessary. And they expect them to look after their data if it needs to be closed data, in just the same way as if they were looking after open data. And the reasons that people don't perhaps share data are that they're dealing with personal data or other kind of sensitive data. There might be intellectual property rights, like if they're using photos, or if they're wanting to apply for intellectual property rights and apply for a patent, then they have to keep their work more secretive. And there are other reasons as well that people might opt out of making their data open, but there are still steps people can take to show that how they've collected their data, what their data set consists of, and where it's stored, even if people can't necessarily access it openly. So it's a very important distinction between open data and RDM, and yet RDM is still one of these elements of open science. So looking after your data all the way through your research process is about being open as well. And when it comes to CDS and LEIDEN, we're very lucky to have some regulations that guide our work. And these were established a few years ago. We're actually going through a process at the moment to revise these regulations. And we're expecting a new version either this year or next year, because a lot's happened since they were established, and that was only a few years ago. But the regulations look at the process of data management before, during, and after research. So it's, again, the focus is not all on publishing data once the research is completed, but it's looking at what you can do in the 3 stages of your research. And the aim is that LEIDEN researchers can manage the data in such a way that it's visible and, where possible, reusable in accordance with applicable guidelines and legislation. So we have European law that governs the sharing of personal data, and we have some national guidelines that I'll mention later. So it touches on some of the core processes of the university. The acquisition of research grants, which of course is what funds the university, what keeps the university going, and the quality of the research that's performed, and whether LEIDEN can stand behind its researchers and defend them, defend their results and guarantee the authenticity of their research. And then about the valorization of research, the measurement, the authentication, and the citations, that the research is useful to other people. And so this is what guides us. And I've pinched from North University a very beautiful diagram, which I think shows where the library fits in a university like ours in delivering data management support. So we are just one cog in a very big wheel of mechanisms that support researchers in their research, and we collaborate with data stewards that sit in the faculties, that are in perhaps project groups. We work closely with the IT support people, and with the administrative office, the people who help with grant applications, the people who look at metrics and valorization, the privacy officer and the legal officers who look at protecting data and ensuring personal data is protected, and many other people across the university. So we are just one of the elements. We do not do everything. We work together with these other groups to support open science and research data management. And so I think that's my last slide in section 1. I'd like to pause and just see if there are any questions about where we see our role at LEIDEN in supporting open science and research data management. Ikwan, do we have any questions that people would like to ask?
Okay, until now they have no any question yet. Maybe they want to understand in the beginning about what is open science, what is this data management, and so on. But I myself I have one question, okay, for you. Maybe regarding to according to this diagram, this I can say the like framework and so on. They have many parties or many stakeholders that could be involved in these particular services, open science services, and so RDM services. So actually, from your experience or from your ideas, which party that could be lead for these RDM services in our institution? Is it library, or maybe research office, or maybe maybe data stewards team, or any join? Could you answer it?
That's a good question.
Yes.
I certainly at LEIDEN, I would say that we probably do lead quite a lot, in the sense that we coordinate and facilitate. My light's gone off in the office, but we facilitate what's happening. So we try to be a bit behind the scenes in what's happening, but we try and bring people and put them in touch with each other. So I'll talk a little bit, maybe things become clearer when I talk about exactly what we do. But we try to actually step back a bit and say we are not the leaders in this. We are collaborating. We want to work together. So a very important partner, I would say, or partners, are the people in the faculties, whether they are researchers who have an interest in data management and therefore know a little bit more than the average researcher, or there are people who work in the faculties who are there to support with IT and project management, and some of them are very key supporters in helping us to train people and get messages out. And so we like to think we work with them as equals. And so we formed this data management network where we try to bring everyone together. So we are organising events, but we try and get them to co-lead, if you like, and decide what is important, what do we need to learn, what are the problems we need to solve. So I would say there's a very definite collaboration, a strong collaboration with people in the faculties. And the other area that's very important for us is the central board that decides on the strategy of the university. And they set up a data management program a few years ago because they realized this was important to improve data management support at Leiden. And we now have a program manager who's in the central office, but he is also trying to bring together the IT, the faculties, and us in the library to highlight and figure out what the priorities are that need to be solved and how do we do that, and to form working groups from across the university. And we work very closely with him. And he's just one person, but he's very closely connected to the board. So he has some influence there and can help us to get messages to them about what's needed. But he also tries to understand exactly what's going on at the face of things, which is where we are and the researchers together. So I would say it's very much a collaboration, but we have a very strong coordinating role. And perhaps when I talk about what we do, that becomes a bit clearer.
Okay, Joanne. Actually, my question also is same like our friend here, our colleagues here. He also the librarian, Akmal Ahmad, who are the stakeholder involved the work of RDM in the library. So when we look at the diagram here, so we know who are involved in the RDM in the library. I like to hear that from you, that you say that just now is about the partnership, is the collaboration is very important, right, among the stakeholders of our parties, in our institution. Okay, one more question from Akmal Ahmad also. Okay, what are the differences in work procedures and job description for RDM involved between professional staff and support staff in the library? Is it? Can you understand that, Joanne?
If I understand correctly, what are the differences between RDM support and another kind of library support, like a subject librarian, I guess? Is that?
Professional staff means that the librarian, the professional librarian, support staff is the support staff in the library. Can you get it? This question is that mean job description. What is the difference between the librarian and also the supporting staff?
Within the library. So I think I understand, but tell me if I get this wrong. So we, I would say in our team, in CDS, we don't have any support staff. So we are only professional staff. We all have, in fact, most of my colleagues have PhDs. I don't, I'm only master's level, but I'm a qualified librarian. So my master's is in library studies. And so we are all quite high level staff, if you like, within the team. And we do not have any support staff at the moment. So in the library, that's slightly different. So you have teams of subject librarians who are professional librarians, with many of them with PhDs. And then we have the support staff who are maybe helping with jobs, working on the desks in the library, working with cataloguing books as well, yeah, helping with the people who come to the library. But we don't really have that model in our RDM support. So we're really only professional librarians. So everything we do, we have to do ourselves, which makes for quite a big job load. And we have to be skilled in many different things. Yeah, do you think that answered the question about the support staff and the professional staff?
Yes, I think I did answer. They mean that 10 people are the librarian, and then most of them they have PhD, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah. Very interesting. That mean that all that 10 people of your group that is they are librarian, the professional staff. Okay. All right.
And that's our whole team. We occasionally will use the library to help with communication or printing some materials, or we work with the subject librarians sometimes and ask them to collect information for us or to feed back information to us. And we also have a team who deliver the training for the library, and because they're training all the time, they know a lot about the training tools that we have and methods. So we sometimes meet with them and ask them about services. But I would say 95% of our work is really done by the 10 people in the team.
Okay, all right. One more questions before we go to the second topic. Okay, it's from Dr. Yanti in Diaspora from University of Malaya. Do you have the data curator in your university?
Yeah, so by a data curator, I presume you mean people who really work with the data and help researchers to organize the data and track data and track the versions and then package it up maybe and help with data analysis. If that's what you mean by data curator, then we have some people in some of the faculties. So this is an area we really want to improve on. At the moment, we rely on established groups of researchers applying for funding and employing their own data curator in their team. And so we have, I don't know, 6 or 8 teams, small teams across the university who maybe have a data curator, maybe only part-time, and maybe only for a year. And at the moment, a lot of them are relying on postdocs and PhD students to actually do the data curation for them. And so we have people who are having to deal with data in a way that they're not really trained for and not necessarily very skilled in doing. And so that's one big area we really want to work on. We want to try and establish at least one permanent data steward per faculty, data curator, sorry. We tend to call them data stewards, but I think it's the same kind of job. So we want to have one per faculty that we coordinate from the library, from the CDS, and we train them, we communicate with them, we work with them, and we call them the first line support. So they would really know the faculties very well, and that's one of the drawbacks. As I mentioned, we have a very broad university and we cannot be experts in all the areas. So we would really like someone in each faculty who is more of an expert and can work very closely with researchers on the kinds of data they specialise in and that are common to that faculty. But of course there are crossovers, so we want them to communicate to each other and to communicate with us, and we help train them and ensure that everyone's got the information they need to do a good job. And they would then still work with people in the groups, in the research groups, really, who are in the project, who then really manipulate the data, and they would work together with that data steward. So maybe you could call that the data curator in the team, and the data steward from the faculty would work together. And that's kind of our vision for the next few years. And we're in discussions at the moment at the university about getting more funding to have these faculty data stewards appointed from the beginning, they won't be full-time people. So we may have one person who serves 2 faculties for just 4 days a week. I don't know. But that's the discussions are taking place at the moment. So we're working towards having more people with more hands-on roles with the data.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you very much for answering all these questions. Because actually we have some questions more, but I think it's related to the second topic. So now we continue on the second topic, Joanne. Okay, in this topic, Joanne, I think I believe that you will share the Leiden University's experiences in delivering RDM services. A lot of questions actually have been raised regarding to the RDM services. Several questions maybe we have been raised. How do you convince researchers they need to do good data management? What kind of the training session that do you deliver? What are the kinds of events that do you organize for RDM community? What is the key data management tools that do you have in Leiden University? And then maybe what have you done to build the data management community at Leiden? So please tell us about your experience, the Leiden University library experience about these things. Okay, I head over to you, Joanne, please. Welcome.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I hope the next section will answer some questions. But again, I'm really happy to listen to what you want to hear about. So as I said, we regard ourselves as mainly the second line support at the university. And there's a picture here of my team. Fika, who is standing behind me, I'm the one sitting down, and Fika standing behind me, we are the 2 full-time data support staff, and Christina on the left and Michelle on the right, they're the part-time data management, part-time open access. Christina, Fika and Michelle all have PhDs. Fika has worked at the university for quite a long time, so she's very knowledgeable about how the university is organised. She has lots of connections and friends, so she can really find out what's going on and knows who to put us in touch with. So she's really valuable to us in the team with that history and knowledge. And Michelle is much more well, and because of that, Fika coordinates our small team, and she also takes more of a responsibility for the policy development at the university and the development of tools and services, and how we can get those raised with IT or the management board. So she really takes this coordinating and strategic role in the team. Michelle is very experienced with training, and so she tends to focus more on delivering training sessions to researchers. Christina started working in the team at the same time as me, and she was a researcher in the medical centre where she was a data scientist, and she is very expert at manipulating data, and she was using big data to look for gene patterns. So she's very skilled with some of the hands-on techniques for data curation and data manipulation. So she comes with a very rich background in research. And my background, as you know, was from the international area, and I've done a lot of work coordinating teams, building networks, communicating with those networks and different groups and stakeholders. And so that's where I slot into this team, that I'm very much focusing on the coordination of activities and the communication in our network within the university. And we regard ourselves as the second line support. So we don't tend to do hands-on sitting with researchers and looking at their data very much. Occasionally we do, and I'll talk about that when we look at the training. But we tend to talk about principles of data management, and then we're relying on first-line support in the faculty, which at the moment we have something called information managers who help the faculty with their IT support and policy, all kinds of issues. They're very busy people, but they have also taken on data management support at the faculty level, so they can advise as a first point of contact. And as I said, we're hoping to have departmental or faculty data stewards in the future, who really will be the people that researchers go to first. And if they have questions they can't deal with or need to be raised higher, they will come to the second line support. So that's our aim in the future. But at the moment, of course, we're missing a lot of this first line support. So we are still having to work with researchers when they need help. And because we regard ourselves as an expertise centre rather than a service centre, we don't have to deliver the same service to every faculty. We want to, and again, that's something we're raising with the board about the need for more staffing in this area. If we are to do all our services for everyone, then we need further funding, further staffing to do that. But at the moment, we are an expertise centre, which also, there are several expertise centres around the university, and the idea is that they perform research as well as advising and working with researchers. So we have an expertise centre for delivering training, and they do research on training, delivery, and how to do that. And we do research. We write papers on how to do data management. So in that sense, we regard ourselves as this hybrid research and service centre. And so the keywords for us are collaboration, promotion of data management, advising, facilitating, supporting, and running pilots. These are very keywords for us. And so when it comes to the range of activities that we actually are involved in, we group them into 5 areas. So I'll go through these. The first of them is the information provision. So I guess many of you do this already. It's nothing revolutionary. We make web pages. We've made some guides, which are available as PDFs on the website. We sometimes make videos. So we try and make educational materials or materials that answer frequently asked questions, and we put those online. But we also want to facilitate discussion. Because we don't have all the answers, we want to know, what do people need? What ideas do you have? Maybe one person has a solution and we want to transfer that to other groups. So it's not just about sending information out, but it's trying to encourage open discussion at the university about how we improve our data management. And we do that through our training and through our events and through our contacts and our networks, which I'll come on to. So the second area we spend a lot of time on is advice and query handling. We have a shared mailbox where we get email questions. We also make ourselves available through MS Teams now that we're not in the office, but when we're physically on site, we have people come into the library to ask questions. And so most of these are to do with when people are applying for funding and are asked to explain how they're going to manage their data, or they're about their data management plans and how to write that and how to plan for their data management. Or it could be questions about, how do we collaborate with this group in Paris and send them our data? Or do we have a tool for transcription of audio files? So it can be all kinds of questions. But to be honest, we don't get a huge number compared to the library. So we may be looking at just 40 or 50 questions a year, but usually they're quite in-depth questions that take, on average, I would say, an hour or two to answer. Some can be quick, but some can be really in-depth and you have to have a meeting and follow up. So they take much longer to deal with than many ordinary library questions. So that's the second big area we deal with. And third is the service development. And I've put this as a separate area because, again, this does take quite a bit of our time. What I mean by this is that first of all, we pilot services, we pilot new training sessions, and we try things out. We may test software as well. And then we have to provide management information to the higher levels of the university. So figures, facts and figures, statistics, analyses, but also reports on what's going on elsewhere outside Leiden, to try and say, this is where we want to go. So we don't get to make the decisions necessarily, but we can really influence the decision-making process. And so we spend quite a lot of time doing this to make sure we have a voice, and that we can give feedback when needed and give information to help the university make good decisions in developing our support for open science as well as RDN. Then the fourth key area is the training. We give workshops that are open to all, so regular workshops. We do these about every 6 weeks, our generic workshops, and anyone can register for those and come along to them. And then we organise some more specific workshops in collaboration with faculties or groups within the faculties. And these can take a lot of our time, and we would like to scale them up, but within our current staff constraints, that is getting quite difficult now to deliver what we would like to deliver. And the fourth area of our work is the community building and the communication. And so we're building a network of supporters and researchers who are interested in data management, because as I say, we need to learn from each other. We need them to be able to raise problems they're having and not necessarily get the answer from us, but discuss with others across the university how to solve that. So it's about sharing best practice and asking questions and exchanging information. So this again is a big area. So these are the 5 basic areas that we work in. And then I asked the Ikwan and his team what they would like to hear more about. And we have this list, how many topics we have now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 topics that I'm going to go through in a bit more detail. And if you have any questions that I don't cover, then I'm very happy to do that. But considering the time, I think I should get a move on and try and cover some of these topics. So the first one is convincing researchers how to do good data management. And we have a sort of range of tools we'll use, and I'll try and go through those quite quickly. So we do this when we meet with them, when we have training and events. We always talk about why you should do good data management. And one thing we like to use to illustrate the ideas is data stories from the news. So whether these are disasters that happen, people losing laptops, whole university buildings burning down, we don't like to scare people, but it's good to have practical examples from the news as to why you need to make backups of your work, for example. You don't want to lose all your work because it's only on your computer. There's also been lots of stories, especially to do with COVID data recently, there's many stories about retractions of papers that scientists have to do because they can't back up their results because they've lost the data. So when we talk about sharing data and about producing documentation and records, we sometimes use these kind of stories from the news. On this theme of learning from mistakes, we organise every year now a data horror week. So in Europe, I guess you know, we have Halloween, which is a children's celebration really. But we use the time of year to highlight when things go wrong with data management and to encourage people to share their stories of when things have gone wrong so that we can learn from mistakes. And it was in this context we built the escape room. Some of you probably know escape rooms, to try and get researchers to play the escape room game and then talk about data management and how they can do that in a better way. So we don't focus on the negative when we talk about horror stories, but try and focus on the positive and what we can learn from that. We're very lucky to have the influence of funders in the Netherlands, and for them, the national funders are all very keen to do good data management, and as a condition of their grants, they usually require a data management plan. And some grant applications have been returned because their data management plan has not looked effective enough. And they're now required to consult with data management support staff at the university, and we have to sign or give our names to say that we have checked their data management plan. So this is a very important tool for getting researchers to do good data management. And I would say I never expected in this job that we would have such a good relationship with the funders and that we would have a close relationship with them, because I never did when I worked in a library, but this is actually a very strong partner of us now. Perhaps as a result of funders requiring data management, publishers ask for data. But when we talk to researchers, we try to say that although you will want to publish data and make data available when you publish an article, relying on publishers to archive your data is not necessarily a good idea, because they don't guarantee that data will be available in the future, and they don't produce DOIs, URLs where you can locate data separately from the article. So we know that this is a way that researchers will come into contact with the idea of data management and data sharing. But I say we try to focus on the idea that they have to take care of their data separately as well, as in association with a journal article. The reputation of the university is expressed through policy and regulations and perhaps culture. And again, we have in the Netherlands a national code of conduct. If you don't have one, this is perhaps something that's worth doing, because this has been a very powerful tool. It was a big collaboration in producing this, but as a result of having this national code of conduct, many universities established data management regulations. And that's where our regulations come from. We also, from the researcher side, so from the bottom up, we have an open science community at LEIDEN. And again, this is something your universities can do. You can look for open science communities online. And I believe there are materials available to help you set up an open science community. And they're better if they're researcher-led, I think. But they bring together people interested in open science to then share best practice and exchange information. So we work very closely with them when we set up events and when we communicate, because they are a very good channel to reach researchers. We also, of course, have the arguments of open science and the benefits for society. And with COVID-19, there are many examples of why we should share data quickly, make sure it's accurate, make sure we explain where the data's from, and make it as open as we can. So very good arguments at the moment that we can use. But coming on to personal reasons, in sharing your data can increase citations and therefore benefit your career. And there was an article from 2020 that looked at this and found that there was a citation advantage of up to 25% for articles where the data had been shared through a repository. So this is a very good argument for researchers. Of course, they're still very much driven by citations and impact. So by sharing your data, you have a good chance of raising your citation count. And what we try to focus on, so we have all these reasons, but what we always try to focus on with researchers is the selfish reasons of doing good data management. That it saves you time and energy in the long run if you organise your data early and look after it all the way through your research project. There was a nice article that mentioned this idea that looking after your data is a love letter to your future self, because the biggest user of your data in future will probably be you or your research group. So it pays to look after it well, to organise it well, and avoid having problems 5 or 10 years in the future when you may need to go back to it and check something, or someone wants to reuse your data and compare it with more recent results. And so when we do some of our faculty training, we ask people to read this article. And I will share my slides with you, by the way. I don't know if you can disseminate them, Ikwan, afterwards, but all the links in my slides, you can follow them. And this article talks about some researchers contacted authors to ask for the data connected to their published articles. and a shockingly low number could provide the data. And many reasons, of course, are that they've lost it, that the files can no longer be opened, or they don't have the time, or they don't know if they can share it, if they're allowed to. So there were many reasons why people didn't share it. But the idea is we want people to be able to share your data, because then people can understand your published paper and understand your results better, which in turn improves your citations. So this is what we tend to focus on when we talk to researchers, that it's for your own benefit that you do good data management. So I'll stop there on the convince. I don't know if we want to pause for questions now or go on. If there's anything relevant, Ikwan, I could answer that now about this section.
It's okay. You can proceed to the next question.
Okay.
Maybe one or two. Okay, thank you. Please.
Okay. Linked with the convincing, I think, is the training. So I think it pays to go on, and maybe the events. Maybe I can talk about those three. So to give you an idea of the training we give, we have the main two types are the generic training, which is at introductory level, and the faculty-specific training, which is more in-depth and tailored a bit more to the faculty in question. We then also do some specialist training for researchers, which we've only really started doing in the last year or so, and also some national collaborations, which are bigger training programs for people across the Netherlands, and where we play maybe a more minor role in delivering that. So I'll explain some of these with some examples. So our generic training, which is open to everyone at the university, we have the main workshop is the how to write a data management plan. And for that, we focus on the research data lifecycle, and we take the data management plan template for Leiden University and the tips document that we've written. And we go through that section by section to look at how to manage your data in the different stages of your research project. It's 2.5 hours. We're doing that online at the moment, but normally we would do it in person. We use slides, and I say we go through the template and we answer questions, and we ask people what their ideas are about how they would fill out that data management plan. And we usually have, I think, between 10 and 20 people attend each session, and they're roughly every 6 weeks. We then organised, a couple of years ago, we started a new workshop called How to Publish Data. So most of the people who come to the data management plan training are at the beginning of their research project, and they're looking at planning. And when it comes to archiving and publishing data, that's so far in the future that we found most people struggled to think about that and to know what they were going to do. So we thought it would be useful to have a workshop on publishing data and do some hands-on uploading a data set to a repository and how to package data together and what you need to think about. But actually, we didn't get many people come to that training session. So rather than abandon it completely, we've stopped delivering it, but we're looking at converting those materials to online materials that people can follow themselves. And maybe we've also talked about in the future having a session, I don't know how often we would do it, but an open session where people can just come to our offices maybe, and if they're wanting to publish data or upload to a repository, they can come and sit in our office and we can help, we can just be there to consult while they're doing it. And maybe that's a better way to do it than to try and have a specific training at a specific time so many times a year. So that's still in progress, trying to figure out how we do that in the best way. We then also deliver a data and project management course. Project management, of course, is very attractive to many people. And so we've managed to hitch on the back of the project training because when you plan for a project, a research project, it's very much a parallel planning to what you do with your data. It's about how you collect your data, what you do with your data to manipulate it, to analyze it, when you publish your results, how you share your data, and how you perhaps collaborate with others outside the university. And it's so closely tied to data management that we've managed to put those two things together and deliver this course. Again, I think it's about 6 times a year. And we collaborate with an external trainer who delivers the project management part of that. And so that's very popular, a very popular course. We also, I think, twice a year, we deliver, in association with the Grant Support Office, we deliver a special training about writing data management paragraphs in grant applications. So that's timed for when the deadlines are for the big funding programs. And again, they're very popular, these sessions. They're just a couple of hours where we do a presentation, but then have lots of questions and answers and discussion about how people can write their grant application. We share some of these training materials in Zenodo, but every time we deliver these courses, we tend to do updates based on what works, what people have found interesting, and just new services, new ways, new things we come across that other people are doing. So we're very frequently updating all these training materials. And so the versions in Zenodo might be a bit old, but they give you an idea of the kind of things we deliver. When it comes to the faculty-specific training, always do this in collaboration with experts from the faculties. In one case, that is an academic researcher who has just taken this on himself, and he works with us and he speaks to the PhD students about the culture within the faculty and the protocols that they're expected to follow in that faculty. With another faculty, we work with a whole team who specialise in working with different equipment in the research labs and how they can download data from those equipment and organise the data. And so it's very important for us to have this collaboration because we deliver the more general data management, why you should do it, how you can write your data management plan, but then we have these people from the faculties who really talk about the specific kind of data, whether that's MRI data or files from Facebook analyses. So they really know much more of the details, and we work together. We usually do these in much longer sessions, so they take between 8 or 12 hours, split over 2 or 3 sessions, over 2 or 3 months. And we give them pre-reading to do. They come then and we deliver some lectures mixed in with hands-on exercises and activities. And then before the final session, we ask them to write a data management plan. And in that final session, each participant presents their plan and we discuss any problems they've had or any nice solutions they found. And so they can then share and discuss amongst themselves, and we try and encourage the participants to lead that session rather than us. We then prepare some written feedback on their data management plan to give them some ideas how to improve it. And those sessions work really well. Those are what we would like to offer to everybody, but because of the time involved, we are struggling at the moment. We do about, I think, 4 or 5, and I think we have 7 faculties, but it would be nice to even break up some of the faculties into smaller groups. So this is an area we'd like to develop in future. And then perhaps, I don't know if this is less interesting for you, depending on your stage, we're starting with some more specialist training. These we do in collaboration with the use of digital data team, who are the software engineers. So they're much more hands-on training. So we've had some bring your own data workshops for more advanced people, where we really have been looking at the data and seeing how to package that and how to make it more openly available by using fair data techniques, computational techniques. We've done also some Python programming courses, which have been extremely popular. I couldn't deliver those, but I say, Christina has been working in collaboration with the 2 software engineers in delivering those. And data carpentry. Again, Christina has qualified as a data carpentry trainer, One of our other team members, the software engineers, is currently going through that process. And it's something the rest of us are thinking we might do as well, so that we can deliver these carpentry sessions, which again are a much more in-depth looking at data handling. So this data curation area we were talking about. And then the Netherlands, because of the size of the country, it's very nice size to collaborate nationally. And because we're all dealing with the same kinds of training, and we're all trying to employ new data stewards, we decided just in the last year, really, that it would be of benefit to work together and to, instead of every university delivering the same training to slightly different groups, we would collaborate, and one university would deliver one training, another deliver another. And so just next week, Christina and I are about to deliver the third session. It's a pilot at the moment, and we're going to see how this goes and maybe scale it up. So we had 3 sessions delivered by 3 different universities, one on introduction to data management and data management plans, the next one on file formats and version control and uploading to repositories, and we're doing one on how our good RDM can accelerate scientific progress. So it's more about open data. And so that's coming up next week. And I say this is a way that we can work together and save our time and effort and make use of other universities who are doing similar things. And it's worth thinking when we deliver our training, again, this is a difference between our group and the library. We're not delivering the training to students, it's really to academics, and they need a different style of training. So we try and make the sessions very interactive, fun to join, but in maybe a more sophisticated way than we would with students. So we have lots of opportunities for discussion, and lots of practical exercises and opportunities for them to raise their specific problem or questions. As we're always looking out for new ideas, we get some from this EOSC training catalogue, which is in development, so something to look at. And with the RDA, Research Data Alliance, I'm in the Engaging Researchers Interest Group, and we're trying to develop a toolkit for different ways to engage with people, to collect ideas for how to do this better. So they're also 2 areas you can look out for. I'll move on to the other kinds of events that we organise, because these are slightly connected. So the training events are obviously to train people, and they're mainly, but not exclusively, PhD students. But with research staff and with the research support staff, we organise other kinds of events. So we organise a lot of invited presentations, other universities to share what they're doing, invited speakers, perhaps they're academics or real experts on things, inspirers, and sometimes commercial product demonstrations, to which we invite academics then and to come along and see if these solutions would be useful to them. Because it's distributed very much at Leiden, we don't buy things for the whole university. The faculties decide themselves. So we try and use our events to educate them as to what's possible. And then it's up to them. We can help them bring the discussion to a bigger group across the university, but we expect them to really push for these things if they want to use them, if they want to have developments. And this is where I say the collaboration comes in. We take their lead in deciding where they want to go, and then we try and help them get there. We have attended some PhD markets with pop-up stalls, so we have some printed information that we take along to just get the news out, get information out. And we have this data management network, which I can talk about separately, through which we organise regular events mainly for the support staff throughout the university. And we've also had quite some success with the Repro Hack. I was going to talk about this, but I might skip this because of time and not go into this in detail, but I've got some information on my slides I can share. But a Repro Hack is a really nice way to work with academics, and I'll just skip through the slides very quickly, to take papers and look at whether you can reproduce the results of a published paper. And so it helps researchers learn techniques for doing data analyses, but it also helps them learn the importance of sharing your data and making it understandable to other people. So these are really nice events that we've managed to organise. And after the pandemic, when we're back, these really need to be hands-on, I think. So when we're back in the office, we plan to organise quite a few more repro hacks. But I'd like to pause there and see if there are any questions about any of this. I'm sure there are.
Okay, thank you very much, Joanne, for that sharing. Is a lot of the new things actually for us in Malaysia to learn from you about, especially to maybe to convince the researchers about the open science and also the research data management, and also how to give the training to our researchers, because this is very important to our researchers to involve or to know more about the what is the benefits of the and significant of the open science and also the research data management. Okay, so Joanne, they have a lot of questions here. Okay, all right. I hope that I will bring one by one to you. Okay, the first one from Ramla, for Cik Ramla, for our friend here. Is that policy is created in the Leiden University? It is you're created by your own, or you adopted from maybe from the government or from any other institution regarding to the open science and research data management? Joanne?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Is it the policy? Actually, for the first thing, that do you have the policy on the open science RDM for Leiden University?
We don't call it a policy, but it is in effect. We have these regulations, and they came about because, well, actually because of some fraudulent behaviour that took place within the Netherlands, where some scientists were found to have made up their data. And this was, of course, a big scandal at the time, and caused a lot of embarrassment for the universities where those scientists worked. Of course, for the individuals, it's devastating, and for the groups, but for the universities as well, very, very embarrassing. It calls into question all the research that's done. And so hopefully these are very rare situations. But what came out of that was that it was decided that there needed to be these national regulations on research integrity. As a result of those discussions, the regulations, the national regulations were made, and this is where the discussions then were prompted at every university to ensure that they had good practices in place, support staff to ensure that people were taking care of their data, and that the university could back up the results. At the same time, I think, this whole open science discussion was taking place around the world. And so the Dutch government has a policy on open science, and also provided funds to support open access. Through these funding agencies, which are arms of the government, if you like, that's where they are pushing for the data management, good data management. So these two things kind of came together, if you like. And then as a result, we have these regulations, which at Leiden, they're quite high level. So they're really about that you are expected to look after your data well, that you're expected to write a data management plan. All researchers must have a data management plan. All researchers must try to make their data available for publications and must archive their data at the end of their research project. Now, how they do that then is left a bit vague, and that's where we are now going round the faculties. We started in 2020, going to each faculty with statistics about how many people we train and how many queries we get, to say, these are the regulations, this is what we're already supporting, but how can you as a faculty make sure that you are adhering to these regulations? And what do you need us to help with? And so Lawrence, my boss, and the program manager, this person in the central office, they went to each of the faculties to discuss that. They feed back to the central board and also to us to see what we can do to then support each faculty. So we do that in the context of the university policy, but many researchers are not aware of the policy. So I can't tell you the number of times we get a query and I send them a link to the policy and they say, oh, I didn't know about that. That's really useful. So it's not well known, even though it's on the web, it's visible. They should be told about it when they start working at Leiden, but still it's there in the background. So it's good to have as a tool and encouragement, but people aren't generally very aware of it actually.
Mr. Kamal asked, Mr. Kamal is a librarian from USM. He asked, actually, when you give the awareness to our researchers in the Leiden University, what is the first impression the researchers in the Leiden when your team introduced about this initiative, open science, research data management, and so on?
I would say because open science is being talked about by academics and researchers outside of the library, they're very exposed to the idea, and most of them we interact with, and especially the younger researchers, they're very receptive to the idea of open science. They get it. I would say there are probably many researchers who are less happy about open science and what it means about changes to their research behaviour. But we don't tend to come into contact with them. And so I think at the moment we don't worry too much about them. We're trying to change things incrementally. It's going to be a long process, but eventually the culture will completely be changed. So if people are not convinced, then let them carry on. You know, this is one of the ways in which the Leiden spirit of independence and independent thought it can work for us, in that we do not have to make sure everybody does these things. We encourage them to do these things. We try to tell them the benefits, but they are grown-ups with very advanced research skills, many of them. And so if they don't wish to abide by this advice or this way of doing things, then that's up to them. But I would say those people are getting fewer and fewer. And some people are convinced. They come along and say, you know, I thought it was all about open data, but it's not. And many of these people can't share their data. I think they're very resistant to the idea of sharing data openly. But when you talk to them about looking after your data and being able to back up your results and looking after it for yourself, then they're much more receptive to the discussion about research data management.
Okay, Joanne, the next question from Professor Dr. Abriza Abdullah. She's a professor from University of Malaya. She asked the question, do researchers at Leiden budget in RDM and open science related activities in their grant applications?
Yes. We are encouraging more and more people to do that. And we ask this question in the data management plan. What is your budget for data management? Funders are now increasingly making this a separate line in their grant application. How much money do you need for data management? And so these are some of the questions we get from people, because they don't know how much does data management cost. And so what we usually tell people is that they need to think about, do they need any special hardware? For example, are they going out and giving interviews and need recording equipment or external hard drives to back up the recording equipment? Or are they dealing with large amounts of data and that need external hard drives as backups? So we offer as a university certain amounts of storage, but we need to check that they don't need something special that's not offered. So hardware is one of the aspects. Another aspect is whether you can pay someone to be a data curator for your team. And then we can give some advice on roughly how much time that might take. I think I forget the figure off the top of my head. I don't know if it's something like 10% of the time you would spend in research might be needed for data management. So if that's staff time and staff costs, you can increase it by 10% for data management support. Our support is free, but those are the two areas, the hardware and specialist tools, and the support within their team. It might be a postdoc or a PhD student who does that, but we encourage them to think about that and have someone dedicated to that job. And that's where some of our groups now have funding available. The other area it might be is for publishing their data, and along with open access. So now you might have to pay to publish an article in a gold open access journal. With many repositories, you have a certain amount for free, but if you have more data than that, then you may need to pay a small amount. So we can provide figures from the repositories on what might be needed for them. So they do budget for that now. And if we do have cases where they haven't budgeted, and then we try and work with them to find solutions that don't have a cost. But then they get the message that next time they should budget for that. So yes. It's certainly something that's coming more and more.
Yeah. Okay, it's great, Joanne. Joanne, for the next question from Jamila Hassan Basri from USM, she asked, how do you guys put in the RDM plan strategies for, that means strategy plans for RDM in the next 3 to 5 years? What is your strategy plan?
This is very much linked to this data management program that was discussed for the university. So it involved very senior members of the university, but also with feedback from us and some of these connections we have, the people we know about who are really working at the front line of data support. And so there was a discussion just before I was appointed, and as a result of these plans, that's where my job came from, and Christina and several more people were brought in. And we have a broad framework of where we want to be. So we want to look at data management plans and how they will develop. We want to look at training and how that support will develop. We want to look at the tools we have and what tools are we missing, and how do we get those. So we have a big RDM program, which I would say was intended to go for, I think, 3 years, but it's been extended because I think it was very ambitious, but what wasn't anticipated was this problem that firstly, you need a lot more staff, and that is difficult to get in any university, I think. But secondly, the solutions that perhaps people thought were there are not yet there. So we might want data management tools. We need hardware and software tools for managing large volumes of data. We have a lot of researchers at LEIDEN doing work on very sensitive topics. We have people researching terrorism and international crimes, working with Interpol, psychologists looking at children and difficulties with children and criminals. So we have some very, very sensitive data. And at the moment, we don't have very robust hardware and software for managing these kinds of data and in the volumes that we're talking about. And I think the idea at the beginning was, we'll just buy a solution. We'll work out what's on the market and then we'll buy something. But the solutions don't exist yet for all these problems. So we've had to extend the program. And this is where we're having to do pilots that might solve the problem for some people, but not for others. So we've got much more of a patchwork of solutions that we're having to look at. And as I say, we need staff. And the pandemic has put a cut on universities. So hiring staff is probably going to be more difficult in the next few years. And all these things need discussion and planning. So we have ideas, and we're moving slowly but surely forwards with these. But it is slow going, I would say.
Okay, Join. For the next question, okay, from Madam Mazmin Mat Akhir. She is a chief librarian from UNIMAP. Hi, Joanne. Is there any collective efforts, strategies, initiative by universities in the Netherlands related to RTM?
Absolutely. We have lots, I would say. We have let me think. We have, first of all, we have what's called the National Coordination Point for RDM. And behind that, there's actually only one member of staff, and I'm not even sure she's full-time, but they were set up by the universities to try and coordinate activities across the Netherlands. And so she organises, she calls on people from other universities to help organise events. And so twice a year we have a big networking event for everyone in the Netherlands. So there's maybe 200 people attend that. All the support people involved in RDM are invited. And it's really to get to know each other and to maybe highlight some special advancements that have been made. So they organise these events, but they also organise through this LCRDM, it's called. They organise a call for pictures where either individuals or groups can put out, they make a little document or a PowerPoint to explain what they think needs working on and to ask who else wants to work on that. And you can then apply. You just send an email with who you are and why you would like to be involved. And from that, they form small working groups. And we just had one work on software, research software sustainability, which we participated in. And we've got another one going on that's looking at how we measure success of data management planning and archiving. So how we collect data about how many data sets are archived and measure what do we need to measure the success of data management. And because they're questions that are common to many universities, everyone wants to help out and everyone wants to learn about the results and get the benefits of that. So these working groups are maybe 10 people. And they're coordinated by this one coordinating person, and they present their results, and they often produce a report. So that's very active in pulling us together. We also have the National Platform for Open Science, which is much more connected to the government and organised through the funders and the government agencies. But we participate in that, in producing thinking and plans and proposals and information for national decisions. So we just produced one big report that took many months on the skills of data stewards and what skills were needed, how we could train people to have the right skills, and what support was needed, what job descriptions were needed to employ the right people and to attract the right people and to get them with the skills they need to work in this area. And that was presented to this national platform to then take action and maybe put funding in place that could then make that happen, make the recommendations happen. So those are the two strong, very nationally working organisations. We also have a community of university libraries. And we have within that university library collaboration, we have one group that looks at data management. And through there, we have smaller meetings where we share much more practical information, perhaps like I've done today. What are we doing to train people? What kinds of training sessions do we deliver? Share our slides and materials. So I would say they're the three main ones, but I say the Netherlands is very good size for making national collaborations, but they're very, very important for us.
Yeah, Jen. For your information, Malaysia also has started to actually we have the Malaysian Open Science Platform. So now we are train our librarians, we train the research officer and researchers to be a data stewards. So all the data steward from coming from the many research institution, including the university, research institution, and I hope that by this year there will be at least about 200 data stewards in Malaysia. So I hope that when we have the data stewards, so all the Malaysian institution can have can initiate the open science and research data management services. Okay, Joanne, we go to the last question before we go to the third topics. Okay, we are run out the time now. Okay,
Yes.
from Professor Dr. Abriza is the last one before we go to the third topic. Professor Abriza asked about the funders and universities. Do they assess researchers on the basis of their work's openness and transparency through RDM and open science practice? Is this happening at Leiden University?
The short answer is, I would say, not very much at the moment. However, obviously this is a topic everybody's talking about, and although there's the intention to start measuring these, I think the question is, how do we measure them? And I do know, because we are now very regularly in contact with people who work at the funding agency, I've heard from them that now that they are requiring a data management plan from every grant application, every time they apply, they have to make a data management paragraph, which is basically a part of the form telling about their plans for data management. If they're funded, they have to produce a data management plan within, I think it's within 3 months of the money being released to them. And they have to consult a supporter. So for us, for Leiden University, they've registered the Centre for Digital Scholarship as the support office. So they have to consult one of us and check their data management plan with us before submitting it to the funder. I know that they are looking at those data management plans because we've had some queries from the funders about those. And what I've heard from them is that because this has just started, what they're planning to do is 3 years from now, when the funding starts to come to a close, when the research programs start to end, they're going to start checking that the data sets are available. So although it's not part of the national assessment of universities, it's not part of that yet, the funders are going to start checking, and I think that will be very influential with researchers. If they have not made their data available and the funder points this out to them, I think they will be at risk of not being funded or having future funding applications turned down unless they change that. So I think this will be a big game changer, because although at the moment we have a lot of people doing good data management, and it's definitely improved, we still notice that many of them, although they intend to share their data, that's the difficult thing at the end, the making the open data. If they have data they can share, how do they do it? And I think that's where we need to focus more effort in the future. I say our training didn't quite work, so we need to look at how we support people. But I think if the funders start checking that they are sharing data when they say they're going to share data, then this is going to be something that will really gear up the activity in this area. So I say the funders for us are the big influencers of this in the Netherlands. And I think in the next few years, things are going to change quite rapidly as a result.
Okay, all right. Okay, Joanne, thank you very much for your answering all this question. Actually, they have a lot of questions, but we run out the time. So how
Yeah.
uh, can we go to the third topic that is very important, especially for the librarian, for the tips and advice for the librarian to start or build upon RDM and open science services in our institution. Please, Joanne, please.
Exactly. I've skipped a lot of slides, but some of the things we've talked about were in my slides anyway, so I don't think we've really missed very much at all. But I thought it was worth breaking down what we've done at LEIDEN, the sort of progress that we've made at LEIDEN, and therefore I think what you could do in really practical terms. And I would say these 5 steps that we've taken have taken, let's say, they started probably 8 years ago, but the real focus of our activity has really been on the last 4 years. So this has taken really 4 years to get to where we are now. The first step, I would say, very important: establish your communication channels, get your website looking nice. Have a mailbox. If you're a team, a shared mailbox means that people can answer questions quickly. But also not just your dissemination channels, but your communication channels with other people in the university. These other people, the grant advisors, are very important and influential with researchers. The legal people who can advise if people are using sensitive data, and the people in the faculties. So get to know these people, have meetings with them, see where you can collaborate, where you have an overlap in what you're doing, and how you can work together. We've done that, but it's ongoing. I would say all of these things are ongoing for us, but they're a good way to get started. Secondly, make sure you have a data management plan template. Ours is freely available on Zenodo. Libra has collected many data management plan templates as well. They have a catalogue of them on Zenodo. So if your university doesn't yet have one, design one based on what other people are doing. It can be very, very simple. Some people have just 5 questions in a 2-page Word document. Ours has developed over the years into a more complex document for our needs. But your data management plan template should suit your situation, your researchers, and your needs. So it's good to look at that, develop the template itself over time so that it remains relevant and useful for people, and use it as a focus. So deliver training on how to fill out a data management plan template, and involve people in discussions about whether it works or not and where the problems are, and look at offer to review data management plans so that you can learn where people have problems and then try and find solutions with them to those problems. The third area is the training program. Very useful, of course, but start small, start basic, and as you learn what people need, try and develop it. But training can take a lot of time. And I'm sure many of you have skills in training if you've worked in libraries. Create and support networks of people. So my experience and what I would advise is that you are not going to be able to solve all the questions or answer the questions yourself. So it's very important to be able to put people in touch with others. So I may get a question from someone in the law faculty who needs a solution for anonymizing data and how to do that. And I can put them in touch with someone either in their faculty or in another faculty who's also had this problem, and they can talk to each other about that. So it's really important to try and develop these networks of people and bring them together to have events and exchange information. And last, but certainly not least, is develop your own knowledge and learn from others. I came into this job 2.5 years ago. I didn't know very much about data management, but I've learned a huge amount, both from my Dutch colleagues, but also by being involved in international groups like the Research Data Alliance. And I would say, don't be intimidated. I've joined groups and gone to meetings and thinking, I know nothing, I'm more here to learn than to help. And then I find everyone else is the same, and that we're all there to learn together rather than to tell each other how it's done. So a lot of the solutions are not yet there. You can help build solutions if you join in. So that would be my last tip. Don't be afraid to join in. And I would like to just skip. I'll share some of these links with you. But just a few of the reasons why we do this. We get a lot of great feedback at LEIDEN about our service. People really appreciate it. So it's really worth the effort to get out of your comfort zone and collaborate and talk to people and try and help them. And it's always appreciated. So that was the end of my presentation. Thank you,
Okay.
But I can stay on a little longer if anyone has any more questions.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Joanne. So, Dang Jewel, is it correct, my pronunciation?
The J is a Y, so Dank je wel.
Dang Jewel. Okay,
very
all right.
Good. Very good.
Okay, Joanne. Because we now at the reach at the end of the session, but we have several questions. Maybe I can take one or two questions more, and then maybe the rest question maybe we can maybe we can answer by the comment in the Facebook later. All right. So is it okay? One or two questions, Joanne, for the next? Okay, yeah. All right. Thank you. Okay, so maybe I bring one question from the Dr. Zainab Ajab from USM. She asked about during this pandemic lockdown, how the library and the librarians contribute to open science and research data management services. I think that's a question from the Dr. Zainab.
It's funny that actually. Nothing changed very much for us, I would say. It helps that our team, we started off with laptops because Lawrence, when he set up the Centre for Digital Scholarship, he very much pushed this idea that we were collaborating. We needed to be mobile, we needed to go out, we needed to attend conferences and international, national meetings. So we were all issued with a laptop. So as soon as we were sent home in the lockdown last year, we were ready to be online from home. And so we very quickly worked out how we could deliver our first training session. We actually cancelled the first one, but the second one that came up, we were ready to deliver that online. And it actually, we found more people are attending our training sessions online than they did when it was in person in the library. We've had to very much change the way we deliver that session. So where we used to get to talk to people quite informally, that's much more difficult online to have that exchange. But we're trying different techniques to try and get the conversation going. So we are still delivering the training online in a different format. And when we go back, we're anticipating that in a few months, we will maybe be able to start working in the office part-time. And so we're looking at combining having in-person training as well as online training in future. So we, certainly the training has continued. We've been able to attend more conferences because we can attend online. And more webinars have been available. So actually we're having to be careful we don't try and do too many of these because they take a lot of time. But we're attending more meetings, more national meetings are taking place because we can do it online. And I would say we're still having contact with academics, and whereas in the past they would send us an email and we would tend to email back, nowadays we can propose an online conversation and people are much more open to that. So we're actually getting much more face-to-face contact with people than I think we did before the lockdown. The library itself is open and some of my colleagues are working here, but students have to book places at the moment and there's a limit on the number of people who can come in. So So it has affected the library itself, but for the Centre for Digital Scholarship, it's more or less continuing as normal.
Okay.
Albeit
Right.
online.
Okay, thank you, Joanne. Okay, one more question is from Madam Rashida Begum. You mentioned that there are plans to expand the number of permanent data stewards for the faculties, right? So what
Yes.
kind of qualifications should they have to be effective contributors to your activities?
That's a good question, and I can't tell you exactly now because that's still in discussion for LEIDEN.
Okay.
Because each faculty, they have been meeting virtually to discuss this, and each faculty, I think, is going to draw up its own requirements. Because in some cases, for example, in some of the science departments within the science faculty, because they were always very data-driven and very dealt with a lot of digital information, they already have a lot of support staff in place. So I say they have big MRI instruments, the data is produced, and they have someone specialised in handling that data and storing it, and a lot of that's taken care of. In other faculties, the individual researchers are still doing that for themselves. So in some faculties, it's they want people really with skills at this level of taking data and managing it and giving advice to the whole faculty. And with others, it's much more filling in the gaps of people who are not working with big instruments, and also working with them. So maybe taking a step back, taking maybe a second line approach, and just taking care of training and awareness, and then putting people in touch with the more technical people. So it's varying quite a lot, and that's something we hadn't quite grasped at the beginning, I think. We thought we just have a set of data stewards with data handling skills and we employ them, but it's actually proving to be a bit more complex than that. I have to say we advertised one position in our central group, in the CDS, for someone with more experience with software, with research software and coding. When academics produce code themselves and use GitHub, how they look after that and how they can share that coding information. And we advertised that position, and we're struggling to appoint to that position. Because I think the technical skills alongside the skills for delivering training are quite rare.
Yeah.
You either get technical people or you get people who are good at training and organising events and communicating. And so finding people with these skills is proving difficult. And this is partly why we've raised this at a national level, that all the universities are struggling a little bit to appoint people who already have those skills, and why we're now planning this national training program so that we get people with some of the skills, but we can train them in the other skills that are needed. But I think that's something everyone around the world will struggle with, to appoint these people, because it's a new area. So it's a good question.
Yeah. That you mentioned about the CDS, one of our audience, our viewers, Madam Nur Azab Momin, she is a Chief Librarian of University Science Islam Malaysia. She asked about what is the difference actually between CDS and Research Management Center or Research Office. What is the difference between this, I can say the office, CDS and Research Office?
Well, first of all, can you say what's meant by the research office?
Research office. I'm not sure that in LEIDEN University they have the research management office. It is managed about the grant application and so on. Is it same with the CDS or different?
So they are different. They at LEIDEN. And we didn't have a very close contact with them until the last few years. And even this year, especially, we're starting to have a program across the university to bring all these research support services together into what a new organisation, if you like, called LEIDEN Research Support. So in the past, they were all very separate offices, and we tried to communicate, but nothing brought us together. And now there's a programme, they've employed someone temporarily to organise events where we get to know each other, and we're going to have a mini conference, if you like, in September to share more information about what we all do. So it's not just with the grants office, but all the research support offices across the university, whether that's the finance, the project management office, the legal people, all those different bodies are going to come together more in future. And I don't know where that will lead us. At the moment, we work with the grant office particularly closely and with the legal people because we train. The grant office asks us to do a presentation about data management planning to help. So they advise on the grant application process and what's expected, what you put into the grant application, written application, and we give this presentation to help give some input to that. But they take care of that, but they know to refer people to us if they have questions. And I say we have people in the faculties as well taking this kind of role, and we're hoping to try and strengthen those relationships and the communication between us all in the future, because we need to work very closely together.
Okay, thank you very much, Joanne. I hope that they will answer all the questions that that we bring to you today. Okay, thank you very much. Actually, now is at the end of the session. Thank you very much again. Thank you to Joanne for answering all these questions for the great Sharia talk. It was a pleasure to have you with us today. We really appreciate your commitment to this session. On behalf of the Chief Librarian, University of Science Malaysia, we would like to say thank you very much. I hope we can invite you again to Malaysia and share more knowledge with the Malaysian library community. Okay. Before we end our webinar series, I would like to invite all the viewers to fill in the e-feedback form. All participants will receive an e-certificate of attendance from us, and all USM staff will get the MyCPD points. The link to the e-feedback form will be given in the chat box. Please fill in before 5:30 p.m. today. Okay. In other announcement, we would like to inform all the viewers about our next Open Science webinar series. We will organize the next series entitled Research Data Stewardship at Hong Kong University Libraries. Okay.
I would like to attend.
Yeah, we will organize the next series entitled Research Data Stewardship at Hong Kong University Libraries. We will invite two experienced librarians from Hong Kong University Library, JC Zhao and Tina Yang. They will share their experiences and insights about the research data stewardship and RDM services in their library. This series could be interesting because we may look at the different perspective in developing and delivering the RDM services. Remember, this next series will be held on the 8th of July 2021 on Thursday at 10 a.m. Malaysian time, 10 a.m. This series will be live on our Facebook page, Perpustakaan Hamzah Sendut, University Science Malaysia, and YouTube channel, USM Library TV. Please save your dates. So this concludes the webinar on behalf of Hamzah Sendut Library and our guest, Joanne Yeomans. Thank you for joining us today. We hope you have learned and enjoyed this session. And I wish have a great rest of your day. See you then. Thank you very much. Stay safe and stay healthy. Assalamualaikum. Bye.